you take the up and down, turn it on an angle, what happens, the low points, what people say slow seasons, become more of a flat area. And you have to acknowledge as a wise operator to that you can't, like, I wouldn't recommend trying to scale when it's flat. And when, like, you got to realize when your busiest season, you don't hire, you're always going to be a season too late. So if you know you're heading into the busy season, you should be recruiting before the busy season. You should have had, like, we have our fleet purchase things set up a year before. So like we're projecting next year already. Like I'm already working on next year. We're not even this year. What we're doing right now is a result of what we prepared last year. Like that's the issue. Most people are reactive versus proactive. And it's because they just fundamentally don't understand their numbers.
All right, so I'm here with Lyle and Sam from Topline, super successful HVAC company in Pennsylvania. Guys, I am super stoked to have you here, and we're gonna get into it. And basically, on this interview, I want to find out how to build a company that does 70 million a year in revenue. So we're going to dive into marketing, operations, hiring, all that good stuff. But starting off, just kind of in your guys' journey and partnering together, Lyle, you were about to show me the first text that you ever got from Sam, and I was super curious what that was.
Yeah, 100%. Actually, why don't you ask another question while I pull that up, and then I'll pull it up here because I didn't actually.
Gotcha. Well, how'd you guys initially meet?
So I met Lyle through a Facebook ad, and Lyle runs a marketing agency, which they saw his ad come up. And at the time, I was a technician that went on my own, and I ended up looking up for a way to get leads. So essentially, day one, I brought Lyle's marketing team at the start and the formation of Topline itself. And through that, we ended up having a good relationship, had, success, and we ended up agreeing, coming to terms of why not just partner to scale this thing.
Love it.
And then from there, we essentially built what Topline is today. So
did you guys, so you started working with him, I guess, for the first couple months, and then you were like,
yeah, so after 2 months, I was on my own. I was, selling the jobs, installing it. It was right in 2020 during that whole uncertainty of like COVID and all that stuff happening at that time. I remember a week before I fully went on my own, they shut down the door. It was like a mess, but I think it was a lot of opportunity in that time, obviously. So that's what gave us the edge and leveraging. I think that's when, a lot of people went on social media at that time. It seemed like, now that I look back, like that was like the pivotal moment where digital marketing was just incredibly, for us, I believe it was, a good leverage point. And that's what we did. We just went all into social media. And after 2 months of running it on my own, that's when we ended up partnering. And that's how, from there, I would say that's when we started scaling the company. It was just operating before then. I was just own my own job, but from there was when we started actually building a business.
Wow,
so I found that. I did. February 26, 2020 at 7:43 p.m. Hey, Lyle, ran across your profile on Facebook with your ads that you run leads on HVAC. I noticed that you're actually local to me. I'm from the Ephrata area. I was wondering if I could take you out for coffee. Would love to talk business. Thanks, Sam. I said, hey, man, what business are you in? He said, just launched my HVAC business this year. I said, sweet, huge opportunity. What's your 5-year goal? Also 1-year goal. He said, couldn't agree more. 1-year goal will be to produce $200K in revenue and have 2 full-time install technicians / service techs. And then I just kept going to ask him a bunch of questions. But
what was the 5-year goal?
He didn't even say a 5-year goal. I don't even think he had a 5-year goal at the time. So he just ignored that question. But
Sam, what were you thinking your 5-year goal was at that time?
Dude, I don't really know, but I didn't know what goals were. I remember typing that, just making things up like, hey, let's just figure it out.
Right.
The only reason I knew at least 200K or some sort of revenue or technician is just because I read a couple home service books right before then just to figure things out. So
and actually what right. So right after that, I asked him what his strengths are. I said I'm definitely down to meet up, but I was in Florida at the time for like another couple weeks yet,
Okay.
and so I definitely want to share. I sent him a couple podcasts and a couple books that I recommended reading. One of them was the Tommy Mello home service
Home Service Millionaire.
podcast. Yeah, and he's like, hey, I actually just read that book, and then and then he sent me a mess. Well, then actually, what happened was it was like a day or two later. I seen a notification come through that we got a new sale, and it was Sam Matsuk, and I was like, what in the world? And I called the sales rep, and I was like, hey, did you just sell this guy? And he was like, yeah, and I was like, well, because I was just messaging this guy, and I'm pretty sure he like had a date set to quit his job, but he's still, and he's like, oh, he's all excited, he's motivated, yeah, he wants us to do the marketing, and his wife's going to book the leads, and he's going to go out and sell. Like this guy's going to do good. So
Love
that
it.
was the start.
That's
And then
awesome.
I think the first month Sam did like 60 grand in sales by himself. I think he was selling 2 or 3 days of the week and installing the other days, and he had his dad helping him install, and it was just him and his dad and his wife booking leads, and they were just hustling, making stuff happen. So I got back, we met up for coffee, and then we had, we just decided we kind of shared the same vision and decided to partner.
Love it. Okay, nice. So Sam, I'm curious about that initial like wanting to take him out for coffee. Was that just like you wanting to learn more? Because at that time you were like you saw his ad, so you're considering him for leads. But I'm curious why that message?
I mean, I always know that my whole time is if you don't know something, you got to associate with people that kind of got there. Maybe you could get some sort of nugget. So to me, it wasn't, I just viewed it as any kind of opportunity to ask a couple questions just to know how people think in that level. Cause he's, in a way it looked like he portrayed that Lyle at that time. I was like, oh, he might know more than I do. Right. So I was like, to me, the coffee was just, I was just so hungry to win that you know, I mean, and to be quite transparent, Lyle was the only one. I messaged tons of people DMing, asking them, and some people answered, some people never did. Um, but I'll tell you what, the guys that answered, I mean, some of them I still have a relationship to this day with, and they've already built their companies and exited. And at that time, I was just getting started. So
Yeah,
uh, I was just very hungry to win. At the end of the day, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to win. And I figured, if you get around people that know a little bit more than you, there's always something to learn in someone. There's always room to disagree on, but there's also something always to learn from someone. And that's what my mindset was. And I was, I put my ego down and said, hey, like, humbled myself and just said, hey,
right.
let's figure things out. So, and that's what I did. I mean, that's why I DM'd him. I'm like, man, maybe there's an opportunity. He's local. So,
Love it. So you started talk. You had the first initial success. You started talking about partnering. What happened from there?
I mean, I think when we partnered, uh, it was just mass execution. It wasn't no, I mean, looking back now, it's just, we just took more action than we talked, right? We did more than we said we were going to do.
So I
So,
remember we met in and Sam in the first month had rented this little month to month office and up in the Effort area. And I remember we met there, and it was pretty much just a room with a whiteboard, and that's about it. And we had just kind of talked about setting a goal for the next year, and I think we had set a goal to do, I think it was 1 million in the first year or something like that. And I think we just drew out on the whiteboard that day what we needed as far as, I was like, well, we're going to need some salespeople and we're going to need some installers. And my theory was one salesperson should be able to fill one install crew, and it's just duplicate. I think we drew out like, I don't know, 4 or 5 crews, and those same crews could also help do service calls, if we had any come in. But the main focus was going to be installs, and then we wanted a CSR to book leads, or someone to focus on appointment setting is really the main role. Someone to handle kind of billing and payroll and all of that stuff, which was Sam's wife at the time from the beginning. And so right away, there was a list of softwares we needed to set up. We set up Gusto for payroll. So we had a payroll system. We set up Google Chat. So we had basically a system to communicate with the team, and we set up a commission structure, and we just went out and started hiring people right away. And I think within the next week we hired 2 or 3 people.
Nice. Love it. So what was it about?
We dropped that warehouse, that office. That was the only time we met in that office, and I quickly dropped that lease. So I signed it less than 30 days. I quit the lease, and we got another lease. So it was massive. I would say now I'm thinking back to your question. Really, we just did massive action, like massive action.
I guess here's some of the other things we did as well. So we realized right away. So it was Topline Mechanical LLC, and was the business. Sam had named it, and I said, why don't we do Topline Heating and Air so people actually know what we do, so they don't think we're working on cars or something different. So it's easy to, and the branding was great for Sam making it happen, but we just wanted something that really popped. We kind of set the culture of what we wanted the company to be, and we wanted a company that cared for the team, which cared for the customers. Right. So we put the teddy bear in place and designed that and just made it fresh. We designed the van wraps, and we started wrapping vans from day one. We got a new warehouse and new offices from day one. We hired a CSR to book leads very quickly, and we hired our first couple technicians and first sales rep and we were off to the races. So that was.
And what, when you first started meeting with Sam, what gave you the confidence to say okay, this is the kind of guy I want to partner with? What did you see in Sam at that time?
I think more so than the confidence in Sam being the right partner or anything like that. The bigger thing was I noticed that he shared the same beliefs, the same values, the same culture as me. Okay. And I noticed that, Sam was a straight up guy. I could tell he was someone that I could trust. He had the same values. Our vision for building something that was great and different than what a lot of people are doing in the industry was both very, it aligned perfectly. And I mean, obviously it was a leap of faith for both of us to partner versus just doing it. But I think the mindset on my side and on Sam's side was, why don't we just work together and make this great?
Yeah. And so you took off right into it, massive action, like Sam was saying. So what did that massive action look like? On your end, Lyle, what was your main role at the beginning? And Sam, what was your main role at the beginning?
So right off the bat, Sam was already doing sales and he was doing install, and that stayed for a little bit. But I remember my first thing was, hey, Sam, let's get you out of the field. And so let's hire someone to do installs and let's hire someone to do sales. I had someone on my team at Systemize who had previously done sales for another local HVAC company. I gave him a call. I said, hey, man, how would you like to do sales here for at least for the summer? We just need someone to get this up and rolling. He said yes. Boom, we had our first sales rep. We had interviewed someone for a sales role that we hadn't brought on board, and I thought, I think this guy would make a good person to actually book leads. So I gave him a call and said, hey, man, I think I have another opportunity for you. And he said, yeah, let's do it. And that was our person to book leads. Sam called a couple guys that he knew, and we had two technicians pretty much right off the bat. And then another one was referred from Sam. Built a great relationship with one of the local suppliers, a great relationship with the sales rep there. And there was another company that there was a guy that was unhappy working there, and he referred him over, and that was another installer for us and technician. So that was like the first 5-6 people in the business that we had right off the bat.
So Sam, you got out of the field, and then how did your job evolve from there?
The key thing is, you don't know what you don't know. So, but what I believe one of my, position of thinking from the beginning was, I was open for change. And when, just read it in the books, and then Lyle's like, hey, let's do this. And right away, I just cast a vision. Okay, I gotta drive fulfillment. And that's where I think what we primarily then led to is separating, where Lyle focused strictly on sales and marketing, and I was focused on operations. And then from there, we just ended up, we got the flow, like how do we do consistent installs, right? Installs are how to do a consistent one install a day. How do we get to 2, 3, 4, 5 installs a day? How to become more efficient, effective, in pulling orders. How do we get effective? Like I remember we used to offer essentially whatever equipment you wanted, we could get it. The mindset was when we were building the company is like, oh, you want this? Let me see if I can get that for you. And in the beginning, that's how we were leading. And then it eventually, like we realized it's inefficient. We gotta control what we drive, not just let the customer choose whatever, because we didn't buy the best then. But when we started buying in bulk and SKUs, and just really focused on scaling, putting people in place, but then also leading people to think in the place of in solution based. And believe that's the key aspect that we developed in our fulfillment side was anyone could install. There's tons of installers out there. But it's another level when you can get installers to think in a place of performance, think from a position of working out of excellence, wanting to go the extra mile, staying when you need to stay late, and then also just understanding responsibility on their end. And that was really developing leaders to help lead and develop this. It's one thing to, you could coach one person, but it's another thing when you can, you could hold and do things for them, but it's another level of leadership. And this was the key thing, I believe, what I was learning throughout the way is like, realizing I always cared that I don't know it all, but I know I could, if I know where to get the answer to connect the solution to the problem, solution to leadership, whatever. So if I knew how to connect it, what that created is momentum and speed. And when you have speed, momentum, you're able to create more fulfillment. You make operations flow, which creates more cash, which means you could hire more, you could pay more. And essentially, I think we got on this mindset of I'm not the one too proud to say I know everything. I'm the best installer. I wasn't there to say I'm the best installer. I'm the best sales guy. That was never the heart position when we were leading from the beginning. I believe that is one of the key aspects that made us scale a lot quicker, because we knew that our weaknesses, and we wanted to empower people that are great in that position, that are way better than us, a lot more responsible. They're more effective in that. That's what fuels their system, their operation, that fuels their life. This their fulfillment is bringing those people in place, and getting out of the way and letting things flow. And then just coaching when things do break, telling them, hey, it's not over. Like, why do you think caused it? And helping them create solutions. And then what happens, they mature. So I believe that was the key thing where I turned into more or less, it's not even about HVAC. We realized that HVAC is just a vehicle. It's leadership, sales, and marketing organization that does HVAC. And I believe that's what what you can get tied up with. You sell yourself short in your growth when you focus on the byproduct instead of the what actually needs to fuel your business operation. It's leadership. And then also you could have great leadership, but if you don't have good marketing and sales, like you ain't going to have a business. You ain't going to have an organization to scale. So
on that leadership side of things, it sounds tough to, create a culture that's like that and to consistently, consistently train people or coach people. So I'm just curious, like, what is your guys' internal process for developing those leaders?
the biggest thing is to have as much base decisions and leading people to greatness, or calling people out, whatever it is, whatever you do in talking communication with the people, let it be from a place of truth, not from a place of emotion. What do I mean by that? If you're focused on trying to please the people, and that, I mean, we weren't perfect, we failed like that. One of our biggest weaknesses, I believe, in the scaling is when we try to please people. We build the business around people versus building out the business on truth and what the business needs to grow, and then hiring people that fit the culture to grow us there. We were trying to convert people to fit versus creating a standard, creating core values, creating who we are. Like, this is who we are, and then bringing on people. And this is, you don't, like, if you're not a good fit, you go. If you are, you change. But we started operating and making decisions based on truth. And I believe that was one of our that's like the wide scope of things, but like how it was implemented is it's different areas. It's clear expectations, KPIs, making uh holding people accountable, right? When someone
Yeah.
fails, not, oh man, I can't afford to lose him, so I'm not going to call him out. Like you got to get to the points that like I'm replaceable, Lyle's replaceable, therefore every individual is replaceable. So we can't like build it around me, Lyle. We got to build it on what is the company, what is the vision, what is our value. um, and to be honest, that's what I believe matured a lot of people that are weak in the organization. It challenged them to think differently. It challenged them to take actions differently, to lead differently. And then B, it also it changed a lot of people's lives. Like some people say, thank you for that. Thanks for challenging me. There's times people said, do, and there's a lot of people that left that got promoted to higher roles that we couldn't provide at the time. And that to me is also, um, I think that's awesome. I think it was awesome. People got other opportunities, and they say that it was because hey, your guys' leadership that helped. So that was, I think that the key thing in the organization. And Law, you could correct me, but we realize we value truth, meaning what is the true reality? We value people's opinions, but your opinion can't be based on skewed on how you feel. It's got to be what is truly what happened, and how like don't bring a problem without a solution because that's just complaining and different things like that you hear a lot. But it's another thing to lead from that, right? In the moment where someone's like holding people accountable when in the moment of like you want to like kind of bend for them. And it was just a reflection that I was a weak leader, Lyle was a weak leader. But when we made the decision that we're going to build off of truth, I'm telling you, you know, I've seen people level up to a level that I was like, wow. Or we were able to attract talent that you're like, this is awesome.
So people either don't have the right cultural fit for the company, or maybe they do have the right culture fit, or they don't have the right skill for the position, or they don't have the right mindset, or maybe they do have the right mindset. So the cultural thing I've seen is very like we've had guys that come in that have been top performers, but maybe they aren't the right culture fit, as in they lie or they do other things that we wouldn't accept as a standard in our company, right? Mm-hmm. And at first we used to see that we this messes with so many business owners, especially when they're trying to raise the standard. They bring someone in that's a little bit higher performer, but maybe they just make a mess for everything else on the team. Gotcha. And they get held hostage to that person. And it becomes, it can run rampant. One bad apple can ruin a whole team. So, and that's something that I believe, someone that truly has the wrong cultural fit, you can't change that. You're better off bringing in people that do and training them. So then the second thing is skill. Do they have the skill set it takes to do it? And a skill is something that is you can train, you can lead, you can get them to have the skill set. Different personalities are better with different skill sets. But then the question is, do you have the time to train them to get them there for where you need to be? So when we were starting out, we didn't have the time to train a technician or an installer. We had to find people that had experience, right? But as we grow and as we think proactively and we recruit more proactively, we have time to train them and get people to the skill that we need, right? So people either need to come in with the skill, or we need to train them for the skill and lead them. And that's the same with leaders and managers as well. As we have higher level managers in the company, there's times where we had to bring people in that already had experience managing a company of that size, because we didn't have the capacity or the time to train them, because we're moving fast, right? But then doing that as well, we've had time to train more people and new people and continue to grow and continue to add higher levels as well. So, but the most important thing is people need to be able to fit the culture, but then they also need to have the skill as well. And we need to have the real conversation. If they don't have the skill, can we get them there in the time we need them? And if not, they might not be the right fit as well. If they might be a great culture fit, they might be a great person, but we're holding them back if we're not honest with them, saying, hey man, you're not cut for this, based on, we're just not going to get there in time. So
gotcha. So rather than looking at the individuals in your company as this like incomplete puzzle, and we need to put in the right pieces to help, them, you looked at the company as an incomplete puzzle, meaning this is the direction we're going. We're being super realistic about this. This is our direction, our goals, our culture, and you simply looked for the people that would fit into those pieces.
Yeah, and the question is not what's the best for me or what's the best for Sam. The question is what's the best for the company. And when we switch to where you think of the company as a machine or as an organization or as a person, and you're working on improving that company, it makes it a lot easier, right? Because when you have a tough conversation with someone and it happens almost weekly now, where there'll be a tough conversation with someone, it might not make sense to have you in this position, right? You're just not there yet. And because this is what the company needs, right? When it's the company, we're doing what's best for the company, which is doing what's best for the team. And I like the analogy I've used with the team already. We're playing to win the Super Bowl. We're not playing high school football. So if we're playing to win the Super Bowl, it's actually going to hurt the whole team if we don't have everyone playing at the highest level.
That makes sense. 100%.
And with all this, what we've learned is, there's certain people that, you thought this is what's really cool. You thought they'd be good for that position, but they're not, because we're operating out of truth. What people would call even like a demotion or whatever it is, they're okay with it because they understand that they're not. And, there's times, we lose someone, but like, I've also seen people, they say, yeah, that's the right thing. Like we created like a neutral place, an honest place, and it just makes it so much more. It feels real. It feels authentic. It doesn't feel wrong. Like it just like it creates such a place, and it exposes and it challenges them with their weakness, and then they know what to focus on. So it created a whole different mindset across the organization. And I would say it really it took the pressure off people pleasing, which is one of the most I believe that's one of the most biggest killers as operators or anyone that is leading people for something, like leading from a place of a good heart, good intention, but not having enough, not operating, but you're leading to please people. Man, that's a killer. It took us from leading from people pleasing to like what is needed, for the for here, and it basically, I think it created the best leaders that we've ever had, and that's that too. And whether we had to bring in externally or internally promoted, regardless, this standard brought in that.
Yeah, and I think, being like having that culture of just truth, transparency, being realistic about what's needed. If somebody is not the right fit at your company, there's a really good chance that there is a place for them and where they'll thrive, but maybe not there, right? Certain personalities, like for me, right? I'm a super creative person. I love to do the marketing end of the business. Operations is not really, my strong suit. But it's good that I know that and then I'm able to use that. So, for the new people coming to your company, if they can, like, I feel like the quicker they can find out, like, oh, this isn't the right spot for me, the better, right? Because you're giving them a mirror, right? With that transparent, you're giving them a mirror, to be able to kind of see, okay, this is my weakness, maybe this is my strength, and maybe it helps them in their career go further in their career than if they had never worked for you in the first place, right? So I love that. That's really cool.
Like another key thing that I can think of was it allowed things to expose, allowed us to trust someone. So someone, for example, I can think of like there's certain different positions like we hire externally in. It's like, for example, a lead installer that says he has experience. We take him on their word and say, yeah, come on board. You're gonna go through a week-long training, and then you're gonna be put out in the field. You're an experienced lead. We're just gonna go over our basics of our standard, and you say, you can do this. We know that, hey, we'll pay you at that rate. Like we'll take you on what you say you can do, your skill. We'll pay you at that rate. But understand, if you do not meet that, if you fail, we will have a conversation where either there will be a pay reduction or it just won't be a good fit. And I am telling you, it's like we had literally guys come in, they would literally come to the office. Hey, dude, I'm so sorry. Like, I thought I knew what I was doing, from my other company, but dude, I am not where you guys need me to be. Like, I want to get there. Can you guys like it created like someone came in and themselves they came in and expressed like, hey, I need to take a step back to get before I'm not what I said I was. I thought I was, but I'm not.
We even had that happen where we promoted people and managers, and they came and said, "Hey, like I realized I'm not ready for this. I want to go back in the field, or I want to go back to this." And we've also had plenty of cases where it wasn't that way. But what I've seen is, I think people are so scared to make moves because they're scared. Hey, if I lose this one person, it's going to tank my whole company. But they need to look at it in more of abundance. They need their recruiting to be up so they can bring in new people and grow. So they're not held. So not them, but their company is not held hostage by any one person. I remember the first installer that was kind of a bad mindset and a bad attitude. He was our best installer, our most experienced guy, and he was with us from early on. But he kept complaining and kept kind of putting this different stuff into the rest of the install team. And we always kind of had to tiptoe around him because he always had, if something was a little bit not the way he wanted it, it was a big deal. Right. So, and it was just stressful. Right. And we put up with this for probably a couple of years, Sam. And I remember when
the mindset was we put it up with it. It was more or less we were just leading from a place of, oh yeah, we're not leading from the right place. Therefore, we were not getting the right result. We weren't leading from a place of truth. We were leading for years from a place of emotion, and we are trying to please people. Go ahead, Lyle.
And when we finally, I don't remember if we fired him or he quit or what happened, but when we finally didn't have that rep or that person on the team anymore, it felt so free. Felt so everyone else on the team was happy. Those issues that he brought up every single week that he'd get other people kind of riled up, it just didn't we're like, wow, this is so amazing. And this can happen with any position in the company. And what happens is if you let it go for a long period of time, it builds, it gets worse. It makes it harder. The collateral damage is much worse. It's like, it's kind of like the company's being infected with something, or the company's being infected with cancer or something like that. And you're not treating it, and it just grows and it gets worse and worse. It develops in the company. The company as the machine. It's like it's broken. And so the quicker we fix those, and we're still not perfect at this, but we're getting better. We're getting better with those things where what used to be super uncomfortable is becoming a lot more comfortable as well. And it's just the faster you can move with the right people, the faster you can grow.
And speaking of people, a big challenge that I'm sure like pretty much everyone in the HVAC industry is having is, how do I find good techs? How do I find good people? So I'm curious, like, how you guys are, you need good, you're talking about building that pipeline of, good candidates. So I'm just curious what you've done to, like where you advertise to, first of all, get those applicants, but then what's your process for bringing someone on, for seeing if they're the right culture fit, et cetera?
So the first thing is anything. So marketing and advertising, whether it's for recruiting or whether it's for getting new business in, really it's just an amplifier. So back in the day, I used to have this amp in my vehicle, so make the loud beaty music, right? And if you were playing terrible music and you amplified it, the music wasn't better, it was just louder, right? So if you have a terrible company and you amplify it, it just exposes those problems. But if you have a company that's a great place to work, it's a place people want to be, it's great, and you amplify it. If you have a great product that customers love, a great customer experience, and you amplify it, it gets better. So the core of it is, and what I see is a lot of people in the marketing world, and Peter, I'm sure you've seen this as well. A lot of people in the marketing world is they think they can build a product that's not good and marketing can fix it. But they'll go amplify something that's terrible. Yeah. Just, we see it all the time with marketers. It's probably the worst industry for it. But so what happened? So what the core is building something that's amazing. And what we did from day one, we put a lot of focus on the team and the culture. And I mean, we were probably a month in. We had, I don't know, 6, 7 guys on the team, not even a month in. This was probably 2, 3 weeks in. And we went around and we talked to the team and we said, how is it working here? Everyone was fired up. Everyone loved it. And we just interviewed them and recorded a video. And the team just loved it. And our recruiting process we started showing every single person we interviewed. Actually, we didn't really interview people. We asked them a couple questions about their goals and their experience. And then we talk about the vision of where we were going as a company. We'd show them how fired up on video everyone else on the team was, because we had a testimonial video from, and that was, people came in, they loved it. And it was just, as long as we kept that culture good, amplifying it, people just came. They wanted to be a part of it. A big issue is not getting the applicants or getting the people. A big issue is like people don't want to work for your company, or people don't want to work for like a lot of HVAC companies out there. They're dying. People don't want to work for a company that's not growing with opportunity. So, and then so we started running ads. I mean, we ran ads on social media with these employee testimonials. We put a lot of job ads out on Indeed, on a bunch of other platforms. So we set up ATS system, which is something, that applicant tracking system. It's kind of like a CRM for recruiting from day one. And we treated recruiting like marketing, where every job application that came in, whether it was from Indeed or ZipRecruiter, or we post on hundreds of different recruiting platforms. We post on anything we can for free. Plus we're boosting some of them. Plus we run some ads as well. So any of those applications, we jump on a phone call with them just to get a quick idea of what they're looking for, what their goals are. And then we schedule an interview with them. Our interviews now are a little bit more filtering, but back in the day, we were getting anybody we could. We weren't really filtering. We were just selling. Here's why you should work here. They come in and they'd be, half of them would be terrible. We had a lot of churn just because we hired a lot of the wrong people, but it worked really well. I mean, that's the easiest way to get a lot of people is to be aggressive with hiring like that.
And you mentioned you want to, if you're amplifying something, you want to amplify a good thing, right? A good culture to find good employees. So is there anything besides the operating on that transparency and that realisticness and the having opportunity for growth? What else do you do to create a good culture?
So right now, as we've grown, we've also figured out that having good performance feedback of how people are doing is a big part of it. So that's one big part of it. But another thing, when it comes to actual culture of the people, what I've seen is most times if someone has a bad mindset, it's very hard to change it, or they're just a wrong person for the team. Culture is made up of the people in the business. So I believe hiring people that fit that works really, and keeping people on the team that fit that's what ends up making up the team. Culture, people will say, hey, here's our core values, and they'll put them on a board, or they'll preach them into their employees. But if you bring someone in that believes that doing a customer wrong is okay, or they believe that treating a customer poorly is okay, regardless of how much you preach into them that, hey, we believe in good customer service here, you're still going to start having that in your team. And that's bad for the culture if you're looking for something other than that, right? Does that make sense? So you need the people, and the culture is made up of the people, but the leaders are the ones that need to determine based on what they see and feedback, like who are the right people and who are not the right people, and keep a close control on it.
Also,
and it's hard. Go ahead, Sam. Yeah.
Another dimension at it, and this I believe was, just kind of learning, if you study it and you break down what is culture, right? There's that dimension, that side of what Lyle said, which I agree with. But there's also another side of it that most people, I believe, do not even look at it. I believe culture is actually a good, if you want to see a good reflection of your culture, it's actually a good result of your systems and processes. So what you do is you break down, you say you see someone that's a good culture fit, you start studying like what they do and how they do their work, and you create that as a standard, and you figure out, how do I duplicate this standard in a systems and process? I mean, a simple example is in our warehouse. I remember this, where the warehouse culture was known as, oh my gosh, they're always missing parts. Like, this guy doesn't want to be here. It was just very, very negative. And
Yeah.
I sat there literally. I remember sitting in the warehouse just watching him day to day. I was like, man, what's causing him? And I realized, like, when he was pulling orders, he was pulling fitting by fitting. Like, our process to pull an order, what worked at pulling 1 or 2, 3, 4 installs a day took all day to pull. It took hour to pull an order. It took hour and a half on the bigger orders. You had to find inventory. So what we did is we restructured. We made kits. I figured out what each job takes and broke it down. And this took a lot of work, hours and hours of it. Took a lot of front end work, meaning we dissect different packages, simplified it to where I got this idea from is I used to work at McDonald's. And I would always sit there. I was like, man, how do I duplicate how McDonald's just simply, like, you show up, you go through the thing, and boom, you know how to do it. So I call it McDonaldifying the business. And what I did is I sat there and developed a process. And guess what? I don't know, the culture in the warehouse just shot up. Why? They're able to pull an order instead of an hour and a half. It took 8 to 10 minutes now. 8 to 10 minutes to pull an entire order. Doesn't matter when it comes in. So you have this culture of just people are actually real. The pressure is released.
Yeah.
The thing is, most people do not think in that way because they're living from a place of emotion. Therefore, they get squeezed, pressure's applied, and what's inside is what gets exposed, which no one's going to be perfect. No one's perfect in this role. The goal is, how do I increase the probability of having that right culture? Not everyone's, from the outside, you might not think they're good, but outside of work, people might say he's not the right culture fit, which is fine. To me, like, you could be a different person outside of work. That doesn't actually, to me, that's not actually culture. Culture, it is to, like, in a bigger leadership role, but from a minute culture in the company, like, it's how are things being done efficiently, and then what's the attitude behind it. And, like, as long as people are not overwhelmed and things are flowing, you really dissect it. You could actually discover culture. I believe it's a data point, how people think, but also what is the system and process of how things are done in the organization that's causing people to think and take action, right? You could have actually the wrong systems and processes that's forcing people to think wrongly, or therefore it's creating a burden, it's creating pressure, which is exposing, and then it's creating the wrong culture.
So, and another
thing that I believe was a part of our growth.
I completely agree with you, Sam. Another thing to kind of add on to that. So another thing we've seen with sales guys and building a sales team right off the bat. And so something that we did, we had our pricing right up for day one. We made a simple price book. Here's all our pricing. And we had a simple commission structure. I think right off the bat, it was just a flat percentage on deals. And our first sales rep, I remember when he called me and said, hey, I have this competing company that's giving him a quote for a little bit less. Can I match the price? And I said, yeah, sure, you can match the price. Let's get the deal. We want to install it tomorrow. And we did. But we just had one commission rate. It was a flat percentage. And he still got paid the same commission on that deal. And then it happened again and again and again, right? And then this rep started doing it without asking because, as long as we had an install and we needed to fill it, it was in our best interest to fill it. And, we would do the calculations, but our pricing was at a point where we could discount some and still make money. But then what we soon realized is the commission structure, it wasn't fair to the company to discount because we'd have one rep selling at a high gross margin and another one at a low gross margin. So we said, well, what if we actually pay the guys more at a high gross margin and less at a lower gross margin? And we redid the commission structure, which helped push that performance culture up, helped incentivize guys to sell at a higher gross margin, but still give them the opportunity for less incentive to fill a crew at a lower gross margin. So, and then another thing, a big thing on sales teams is bad mindset when it comes to what they would call unqualified leads. People that don't buy. They walk into a house, the house says no. They're looking for, instead of looking at what could I do better on this lead, or let's say it truly isn't an opportunity, what could I do to still get something out of this drive I just did? Maybe it's knock on the neighbor. Instead of looking inward, they look outward. They look, what can I do to justify my lack of making money for my family today? My lack of bringing money back for the company today? And that mindset is a mindset that we want to get away from, right? And so what we found in building a sales team that has this culture that we run every lead, we had to preach into these guys, because we'd have guys that are like, I don't want to run leads in this zip code, and we had to make it a normal thing. When people come in, we don't discriminate based on color, we don't discriminate based on zip code. We're out to help everyone. We donate systems to people in need, and we're also there. We have financing options for people in need. I mean, we're out there to help anyone, right? And we had this guy come in recently, and he sent in one of the sales group chats a big message about how, like, he ran this lead in a bad zip code according to him, and he didn't like it, and he made a big deal about it, and then he quit. And here's what some of the guys said on our team. This is the culture we're looking for. One guy said, hey, all, just to give my 2 cents on pre-qualifications, because I think it's worth addressing. I've driven to my fair share of credit declines, unqualified buyers, falling apart houses, broken down mobile homes, bankruptcy holes in the ground, or where a house once stood. There's a significant share of buyers and homeowners that would exclude themselves from the opportunity of working with us if simply asked on a pre-qualification, including people like myself who might be interested in a system but isn't interested in giving this info out to a CSR rep over the phone. That would be devastating to our results and success as the company. And we don't have the ability nor the desire to treat people differently based on the value of their home or neighborhood they live in. Having been to my fair share of situations, I can tell you, you do not know how much money you're going to make or what a customer is going to present you until you're at the table. And then he goes on to say, here we go. It's tempting on those 6-hour round trip drives to a 300 credit score to feel like we should start excluding people or change a system that's working really well. But the simple reality is we are paid well and taken care of by this company, because this job isn't always easy and it requires us to be mentally strong. And this company is strong and successful because it wants to serve everybody, provide everyone with a solution, and help people other people aren't willing to help. I think that I'd likely go find a new job before I worked for a company that denied people service based on their zip code, or whether or not they lived in a mobile home, or whether or not they're trying to improve a home in a rough part of the city to try to bring life back to the city. We can be and should be proud of where we work. The hard parts are the part of why we're proud of it. It's part of why we love to work here and part of why this is a great job. This guy here is pacing to make 260 probably this year. I think his first 8 or 9 months at Topline, he made 190 grand. And this is just doing sales. That's all he's doing. I mean, and we have
Incredible.
Another one here. Hey team, I want to be clear. This company was built by people who don't quit when things get tough. We don't run from challenges and we don't cut corners. We serve everyone we can with pride because we believe in creating opportunity, not judging it. Just a reminder, not everyone's cut out for this. It's easy to chase the next thing when things get uncomfortable, but the ones who stay, grind, and keep their standards high are the ones who build real careers here and lives here. We don't turn our backs on people because of a zip code, credit score, or because it's a tough day. That's not who we are here. It's why we win. The hard jobs, the long drives, the tough conversations, that's what separates us from the rest. The future we're building isn't for everyone, but it's 100% for the people who are willing to put in the work, bet on themselves, and stick it out. Proud to be building with you all. And so this is just, and then he goes on to say, like, yeah, the grass always looks greener, but really the grass is greener where you water it. And what I've seen is guys are always looking for a reason to put their failure onto someone else, or they're looking to blame their circumstances. It's a victim mentality. Winners win. Victims look for reasons why it's okay to lose. They look for outside reasons where, hey, it's not my fault that I'm losing. It's this fault. It's the lead's fault. It's the company's fault. And this is the same for owners. I see a lot of owners have this mindset in their companies. And, you know, it's the economy. It's the high interest rates. It's the, you know, it's the slow season. These are all victim reasons. It's reasons outside their circumstances why they're not going to get up and win today.
When it comes to those when it comes to those leads, a lot of people watching this interview, and rightly so, are going to ask, like, okay, mathematically, I know that if I go to these zip codes, we have like a 10% close rate, where if we go to these zip codes, 20%, 30% close rate. Yeah, you guys are, what did you say? You're on pace to do 70 million this year?
Yeah.
And that's how you operate, is we serve everybody, right? So I'm wondering, like, how does that mathematically make sense, right? How does that make sense that you're serving all these zip codes and still able to be, successful at it? You're not doing all that pre-filtering.
Well, no one else. So the one thing is, when you get someone approved in these zip codes, it's an automatic sale. No one else is. If you're going to a place that no one else is willing to go, and you can actually help them out. I mean, we've had people crying with joy because no one else would come help them out, and we've gotten them approved, and we've gotten them a new system, and they had heat and AC for the first time in however long, and the joy that brings, it's just who we are as a company. And if what I've seen is, it's also less expensive to get leads with less filtering. It's also less expensive to get a sale with less filtering. And if you're going to narrow the zip codes, you can totally do that. It's going to be hard to grow as fast without any. I mean, we've only been in business at Topline for 5 years, not even 5 years now. You know, it is hard to grow as fast without that.
I think
So
another key thing to this, Lyle, is just because they live in that zip code doesn't mean there's someone else that is willing to help them out that's in a better situation in their life. And you got to understand, at the end of the day, take a big stop viewing it selfishly. Look at it from a place that, dude, there's actually, I know this might sound crazy, but there's actually really good people out there. And I believe, I get it. Not everyone, people go through tough times, but oftentimes you'll see is in these situations, like, they have a lot of co-signers that are willing to sign for them. There's people that are willing to help them out. They're looking, like, there's a good chunk of people that are looking to do this project, know they need to do it, and they already talk to someone that's willing to help them out. We see that a lot. So they're like, you could just never prejudge. And dude, we've had just as much what you call finance unqualified, whatever you want to call it, in good zip codes. When we tried filtering out. You just can't predict. And at the end of the day, like, with the economy, with everything that's been going on in the last 5 years, it hasn't really been a normal year for us. Whether there's equipment shortages, inflation, you could name interest rates, you could name every people losing jobs, get more debt, like their debt is bad. Whatever you can think of, has been happening, and it always will be. So, like, we just got to come in with the opportunity mindset that there's always an opportunity, and to be transparent with your question, Peter, there's certain, we might block off a couple of zip codes or certain areas as we scale into a busier season. So we might go to a wider service area, and we know that there's less probability to sell in this zip code. I mean, if we're going into a busier season, we actually shorten our service radius, and we try to serve more closer, because that's where, summertime is where we make all our money, and we want to reduce all that. So it's been one of our strategies to help with that, and we're transparent with that with our team. It's like, hey, that's what we try to do. So yeah, that's
Now, I love that as you're explaining the uncertainty of the market stuff, Lyle's flag falls behind it as if to prove your point.
So literally, yeah, that it had fell earlier. I stuck it back up there again. I thought, I hope it doesn't fall in this, and sure enough, it fell. But I just had one of the guys text me right now that he just got a sale to a terrible credit buyer that he was working with for a while, and the guy somehow magically was able to put on a credit card. So, yeah, that's.
And now he's gonna have AC this summer.
He will, yes, which I don't think he had
awesome.
last summer.
A big thing with all this, if I could put it in words, it's, you want to know how you're doing as a leader. Look at the team underneath you, and you can talk, you can say how good you are, you can say the right things, and you could paint a beautiful exterior picture of yourself, but you can't fake results. You can't fake the byproduct. You can't fake the fruit. And that's the key thing is in all this is we were the guys that are just willing, like, hey, why not? Everyone says you can't do this. This is the standard. Why can't we build it? People say you can't build a whole company without a service model. But we're like, well, why can't? Well, how can we get it done?
Yeah.
So, and I believe
One of,
that mindset is just in every area of our business, and that's been helping us get to where
one of the core values we put in place from the beginning as well with a couple others, but one of them was we don't ask can we ask how can we. So when someone says something can't be done, it's wait, stop. How could it be done? What would it take to actually do that? So that's a big part of how everyone should look at it in their business.
Yeah, sometimes I'll even use that as a creative exercise. Like, okay, I don't know if it can be done, but if it were possible to do this thing, what would have to happen to make it possible? And you can surprise yourself with the solutions that you can come up
you
with.
actually realize the more you actually believe that and lead that way, you will realize problems actually do not exist. There's no such thing as a problem in life. What it means a problem arises, it's an opportunity for a solution to be exalted, as a solution to be executed. And the fact that you see it as a problem means you have the capacity, if you would just shift your thinking, to create a solution. Another person doesn't actually see that as a problem while you do. It's like you look at people like, well, why doesn't he see it what I see? Or this, like, that's the beauty of us as humans. And that was one of the things is if you can see from the lens of solution, you do not see problems. Like you do, like quite frankly, to get it solved might not be the way you want it. You might have to do something that you never thought you wanted to, but that's a solution, right? And that's the more we focus on that, dude, I mean, I don't see problems. I believe, nothing's guaranteed. There's nothing certain. Most people live at their life like they want certainty. Dude, nothing's certain. Nothing's certain in life. So we need to live like what's the highest probability that this succeed, or what's the highest probability for things to happen, for this to occur, and having the position, the state of mind, knowing like, dude, things can disappear or things can shift. Change is normal. It's not the end of the world. Nothing's an emergency in life. Those are the key aspects, I believe, as a leader to carry and what we carry and try to execute on. And it's challenging at times. I'm not gonna lie. At times it's like it's like, oh, you have a bad month, you have a bad week, bad day, but you don't let that be your identity. That's the key. Your success of the organization or the failure of an organization does not create your identity. If you learn from it and or you use it to humbly lead others, like you'll create such more of a difference than carrying the low mindset of letting it become you, and that's where you become literally the issue.
So we have 10 minutes left. So I really want to touch on something that is, I know a lot of HVAC guys are struggling with, which is just the up and down of seasonality, right? Not being able to keep up in the summer, not having enough hours for techs to work in slow seasons, people leaving. So I'm just curious, as you guys have grown the company, how you've dealt with that problem specifically and what solutions you've come up with.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say from my angle, like everything's a flow. Everyone hears the word cash flow, right? I think flow actually resonates in every area. You need a recruiting flow, you need a lead flow, you need a hiring flow, you need a systems flow, you need a purchasing flow, you need
when you say flow, are you talking about like a pipeline that things are constantly going through? Is that what you're
define flow. It's got to move. So whether that's the pipeline, whether that's with replacement, whether that's building up, whether that's understanding like this is where the faucet's got to turn on, like you got to increase the speed of it, meaning you increase marketing, you increase recruiting, you increase vehicle fleet purchasing, you increase your systems, right? Like things are breaking at certain things. Like you have to realize at what point break or what's limiting and how do I make it work. And the only like most people, they view it, if I could explain, it goes up and down, right? Their seasonality. The way we view things, let's say it's more drawn like this, up and down the seasonality. If you actually turn it on an angle, it actually becomes more of it goes
It's
up.
outside of the camera a little bit there. Can you put it in frame?
It goes. I'll just explain it. If you take the up and down, turn it on an angle, what happens? The low points, what people say, slow seasons become more of a flat area, and you have to acknowledge as a wise operator to that you can't like. I wouldn't recommend trying to scale when it's flat. And when like you got to realize when your busiest season, you don't hire, you're always going to be a season too late. So if you know you're heading into the busy season, you should be recruiting before the busy season. You should have had like we have our fleet purchase things set up a year before. So like we're projecting next year already. Like I'm already working on next year. We're not even this year. What we're doing right now is a result of what we prepared last year. Like that's the issue. Most people are reactive versus proactive. And it's because they just fundamentally don't understand their numbers. I'm not talking about just P&L. I'm talking about numbers of every aspect. From what should the org structure look like? What should the fleet count look like? What should your inventory purchasing? Are you leveraging that? What should your marketing budget? All the different factors. Now understanding that. And I believe when you get that mindset, you catch the flow. And then what happens, you start scaling. I mean, that's how we're adding. We went from last fall we had maybe 100, 150, 160 to now we're at 260 employees. And we did that in like 5 months or whatever. Realistically, we grew a lot of it, most of that in the last 2 months. We doubled our sales team in the last 2 months. We went from like 20, 24 reps. Now we're like 50, 55 sales reps. And we did that in less than 2 months. And it's because we understand we're preparing for summertime. And then in the fall, we'll kind of sustain and we'll offset, we'll run, we understand that we capitalize on our marketing and we'll outspend a little bit more in the fall to keep guys busy because we want to lose people. We'll run at lower margins and then we'll repeat it again. And we just, at the end of you got to know your numbers and you got to understand the flow of growth.
So, and by flow as well, just picture a stream that's just flowing perfectly. And you can have multiple boats on that stream. And if they don't have any motors or anything, they're just sitting on the stream. They're all going to flow perfectly beside each other. And what happens in a lot of businesses is you might have one that has a motor and one that doesn't. And maybe they both have motors and they keep doing this and install and sales and marketing. It keeps doing this. And this is the hard part is balancing this, but it all needs to flow together smoothly. And as long as the business, there's multiple ways to do this, but as long as they flow together smoothly, there is actually no such thing as a shoulder season. Even if you do less revenue in a season, if everything flows smoothly, you have like variable, if you have variable pay plans where, for example, our installers, they make a percentage of their income is based on bonus. They're going to make more bonus in the summertime. They make less bonus in the slow season. In the slow season, due to that, they get paid less. Same with sales guys. They make commission based on what they sell, based on the margins that they sell. So when they're selling at a higher margin, they get more commission. When they're selling at a lower margin, they get less. So because of that, the variability of the seasons, the structures we have in place help with that variability. A lot of people run their employees and their overheads flat, and then they have the revenue do this. And they make a lot of profit. Oh, they lost money. The other thing, what Sam was explaining, I mean, I think of it, there's this wave, but if you turn it, it turns into steps. So instead, we're actually jumping up right now. And then this fall and winter will stay flat. And then we'll jump up next spring. And it's just, instead of it being a wave of ups and downs, the revenue might go down a little bit, but it's really a step. What I see is businesses will do 30% more on average in their, at least kind of in our market, in their summer hot months compared to their slower shoulder months. So why don't we just grow 30% or more in, when we can in the summer months, and then try to maintain that same revenue or as close to possible. Gotcha. Does that make sense? Or a little bit less with a little bit less gross margin, but the same amount of installs in that shoulder season.
That is so cool. Cause that that summer, that season of where you're going to have that step up, that's almost an advantage because like, oh, that's our 30% growth. We're just going to prepare for that and then maintain after that. So
What
being
do
able to see it coming, I feel like helps you. You know what I mean?
what do guys do in the summer? They book out. They don't have enough guys. They pull back marketing. They're still getting more calls than they can handle. I remember there's this $100 million plus heating and air company, and I was doing some marketing for them. And in the summertime, I remember it got hot really quick, and we got like a record number of leads. He's like, "Hey, we need to shut off all the campaigns right now." And I was like, "What's going on? Like, this is the best time to get a good ROI." He's like, "No, it just pisses people off when it's this hot." He's like, "All that happens right now is we piss people off." And what happens is these companies do that every year. They piss a bunch of customers off because they can't get to them quick, right? The standard of service they provide in the slow season is not the standard of service they provide in the busy season. And so that's where they're looking to hire after they had a couple hot days, right? When they knew they know every year it's coming.
Right.
They know, it's kind of like farmers. They harvest every year. They know exactly when harvest is. They know what the weather's going to be like when the harvest is. They know that if they're harvesting wheat, they might have a 2-week period to harvest wheat. It doesn't matter if they have 1 acre or 1,000 acres. They're going to have to harvest 1,000 acres in 2 weeks. And they know, they plan for it. They have the equipment ready. They work on the equipment. They make sure everything's perfect and ready to go. So when the harvest is, they're prepared and they're ready. People treat their businesses like they don't know when the harvest is, even though it's the same time every year or similar time, might be plus or minus a month, right? So they're not prepared. They're freaking out that it's slow, and then it gets hot and they book out and they don't have time to hire anyone. It's too late. They should have did that last month.
100%. So the way you guys approach it is more like, hey, summer's coming around. Time to grow the company by 30% and get everything ready to.
Yeah, it's here's what we're
before.
gonna. Here's the number we're gonna do in February, March, April. Here's the number we're gonna do in May. Here's the number we're gonna do in June. Here's the number we're gonna do in July. Here's the number we're gonna do in August. And then reverse engineer it. How many people we need to hire? When do we need to hire them to have a week or two of training, whatever we need, depending on their experience or more? When do we need the vans to show up? When do we need everything to show up? It can't be too early or we run out of cash. It can't be too late or we lose a lot of opportunity.
And the simplest statement to put it as is most people think they're running their company, but their company is running them. So you need to transition to where you're actually running your company so that you could create the results. Don't let the company run you. And the reason why the company runs them is because they're very risk adverse, or don't have their reaction based leader, not response. The difference between a person of response and person of reaction, person of respond like understands and responds to it and pivots. A person that reacts is consistently a victim mentality, and it's because they lack in leading themselves. Therefore, they can't lead their team. They can't lead their company, and that's why their company represents. That's why they existed for 10 years. It's like, why get into business and not want to grow? Like,
Right.
I think it's selfish to get into business just to make money for yourself. Like that's great and all, but like I think business is a good vehicle to lead people, to transform lives, to empower people, and you become a person. You got to be selfless, and that's a lot of people people let their company run them or the business run them, and that's why they have these issues, and they lack the ability to even think in that place.
What advice would you guys have for somebody who, just starting off on their own, or maybe they've been running a business for a while, but they're still stuck in that, up and down seasonality. Don't have things systemized yet. Don't have their, what do you think is like the first step for that person to start growing their business?
I would say the first step is invest in themselves. Read some books, listen to podcasts. Right now, you can also have ChatGPT summarize books for you, which is a huge advantage. Reach out to guys that are doing what you want to do, that are bigger than you. Ask them to come tour their companies. We toured a lot of companies in the industry. We just picked a lot of people's brains. I mean, be a student. Understand they don't know everything. If they're not there and where they want to be, find people who are and learn from them. And that doesn't mean you have to pay someone a lot of money. Like we've had people we paid a lot of money for an hour of their time. We've had people that just gave us value for free as well. So but it's just asking, reaching out.
I think another thing is you need to do more than you say, and you'll get more than you ask. So, most people just talk the talk, but they don't actually take action. Just to take some risk, fail, learn. It's like, okay, drop 10 grand in marketing. Like from day one, we were spending five. I put things on a credit card. I didn't have a business. I spent 5 grand in marketing. And most people are scared to spend $100, $500. It's like, dude, just you'll learn. It's a lesson. If you think it's like, if your identity is in what you own and possess, you're never going to spend it. But if you use life as a resource, you utilize everything as a tool, and it's to help you grow, like, and have fun with the journey. Like, if you can't take the risk, don't be in business. If you can't fail, if you're scared of failing, like, you got to get your identity right, because like the failure does not define you. So like, to me, don't be in business if you're scared, and if you're not going to take risks, like, you're never going to learn. Like, no one's going to save you. I'll tell you that. No one's going to come out there and give you the magic bull and say, hey, this is what you should do. It's not, no one's going to be like that. You can get help. You can get partners that can assist, reduce the risk, and help increase the probability of success. But true success happens when you decide that you want to change, you want to lead, and you want to succeed. You're going to take the actions. You're going to fail, and then overnight, you fail so fast that people think it's overnight success. And that's the thing, is most people haven't failed enough, because they're a product of whatever how old they are. They that's what their mindset has been over the years, and they try to lead from that position. And oftentimes those thoughts and those patterns and habits are not actually what's going to take you to the next level. But for you to know that, you got to fail so you can renew your mind, so you can learn something new to get to the next level. So my thing is, you need to focus on, developing yourself, but just do more. Don't just talk. Do take more action. More action, more action, more action.
Love it. Awesome, man. Super strong note to end on. I'll second that. For anybody watching this, like, it's about taking action, taking a lot of action. You don't necessarily know which thing is going to work at the beginning, but just go for it. So,
So ideas are worthless without execution. And a lot of people have a lot of great ideas, but it never gets executed. And they might be, they might be $1 million, $100 million ideas, but they never got executed. And I think there's a saying where the grave is the best place for unexecuted ideas. But that's where you just got to execute, make things happen. You're better off doing something and failing and learning from it, and then doing something else and failing and learning from it, and then doing something else and succeeding than just sitting. And I think people do, they just sit and they think and think and think, and they'll get a million new ideas, and they'll try to perfect the idea, and they never take any action.
Love it. All right. Hey guys, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I personally learned a lot. I'm sure anyone watching this will learn a lot. Can't tell you how much I appreciate you both taking your time being on here. Sam, pleasant surprise you showed up, man. I'm super glad to have you on, and appreciate it, guys. So thank you.
Thanks.